The crowd around the arena was loud and excited, shouting and cheering for their favorite warriors. The sun reflected off the metal armor of the aliens, creating a blinding glare. In the middle of the arena, a tall and muscular alien woman stepped forward. Her skin was a deep shade of red, and her eyes burned with confidence. In her hands, she held a massive ceremonial mace, heavier than anything most warriors could lift. Every muscle in her arms was tense, showing she had trained her whole life for moments like this. Whispers ran through the crowd. She was known as the strongest fighter of her clan, undefeated in every challenge she had faced. A human stepped forward, standing alone at the edge of the arena. He was shorter than most of the aliens, and his body was thin compared to theirs. People laughed when they saw him, thinking he would not even survive holding the mace. They whispered, "No human can lift that. He will fail immediately." His clothes were simple, his skin pale, and his hands looked small. But there was a calm look in his eyes, a quiet strength that no one seemed to notice. The alien woman's smile was wide and confident as she walked closer. She stopped in front of him and lifted the mace high. It gleamed under the sun, a weapon that symbolized power, strength, and tradition. According to the old law of the arena, if a challenger could not hold the mace, they had to leave in shame. But if they could lift it and hold it steady, they would earn the right to fight the strongest warrior of the clan in a trial by combat. She expected him to fail, expected the mace to slip from his hands the moment it touched him. She lowered the mace toward him, letting it rest in his hands. The weight pressed down hard, pulling at his arms, testing every muscle. The crowd leaned forward, waiting for the moment he would collapse. He tightened his grip, his fingers digging into the heavy metal. His arms trembled slightly under the pressure, but he did not let go. Everyone gasped. Murmurs turned into loud shouts. "Impossible!" someone yelled. "He's holding it!" another voice shouted. The alien woman blinked, confused for a moment. Her eyes narrowed as she realized he was not dropping the mace. The crowd erupted into cheers and disbelief. No human had ever lifted such a heavy weapon, let alone held it steady in front of the strongest warrior of their kind. Some aliens shook their heads, thinking there must be a trick, some hidden weight adjustment that made it easier for him. But when the human's muscles flexed and his arms stayed firm, it was clear. He was holding the mace by his own strength. The alien woman stepped back slightly, her confident smile fading into curiosity. She had expected this fight to be easy, a way to show off her power and humiliate the human. But now she realized that she could not underestimate him. His calm expression and steady hands told her he was ready, that he was not afraid, and that he had more strength than anyone had guessed. The crowd was watching every movement, every small shift of his body, waiting to see if he would finally fail. But he did not. A tense silence filled the arena for a few seconds. Even the wind seemed to pause as if holding its breath. Then, a few of the spectators began whispering among themselves. "By the tradition of the arena," one said, "he must now face her. He cannot walk away. The challenge is real." The human knew this. He felt the weight of the mace pressing down on him, but he also felt a surge of determination. He would not let the weapon fall. Not now, not ever. The alien woman circled him slowly, testing his stance. She tried to intimidate him with a glare and a slight swing of her mace, but he did not move. He held it steady, showing control and patience. The crowd watched as she leaned closer, tapping the mace lightly against his arms, trying to find a weakness. Sweat began to bead on his forehead, but he did not falter. His grip did not weaken. Each tap from her mace was a reminder of the challenge ahead, a signal that this fight would not be easy, but he was ready. Whispers of respect started spreading among the spectators. Some aliens began nodding quietly, realizing that perhaps this human was not as weak as they had assumed. Others still doubted him, thinking he might collapse at any moment. But the human's focus was unbreakable. He felt the power of the tradition weighing on him. If he dropped the mace, he would be disgraced. If he held it, he would earn the right to fight the strongest warrior in the arena. He tightened his grip even more, feeling the metal dig into his palms, but he did not flinch. The alien woman finally raised her mace high, signaling the start of the trial by combat. The rules were clear. The one who held the mace and survived the trial would gain honor and respect, while the loser would face shame. But there was more than honor at stake. There was pride, courage, and a demonstration of strength that no one in the arena could forget. The human felt the eyes of every alien on him, their judgments, their expectations, their disbelief. His heart pounded, but he was not afraid. The moment stretched on, tense and full of suspense. The crowd was on the edge of their seats. Even the alien woman, who had expected an easy victory, now regarded him with a mixture of surprise and intrigue. The human's hands did not shake, his eyes did not waver, and his body did not collapse. He was holding the mace, defying the expectations of everyone present. By the old rules of tradition, he had already made history, and the arena now waited to see if he could continue to hold on and prove himself worthy of the ultimate challenge. He felt the weight of the moment, the heaviness of the mace, and the pressure of tradition all at once. But his determination was stronger. He had come this far, and there was no turning back. Every second he held the weapon made him stronger. Every breath he took reminded him that he could do this. And as the alien woman prepared to test him further, the crowd realized that this human was no ordinary challenger. He was someone who could change the rules of the arena forever. The first challenge had been met. The human had held the mace, defying expectations. And now the true test of skill, strength, and courage was about to begin. The tension in the air was electric, and every eye in the arena was fixed on him, waiting to see if he could continue to defy the odds. The tradition of the mace had chosen him, and now he had to prove that he was worthy of the honor and the challenge ahead. The human stepped into the center of the arena, feeling the rough sand under his boots and the heavy mace pressing down on his hands. The crowd's noise seemed to fade into the background as he focused on the alien woman standing before him. She was taller, stronger, and faster. A warrior trained her whole life to dominate anyone who dared to challenge her. Her eyes were sharp and cold, scanning him from head to toe as if trying to find the slightest weakness. He noticed the small smirk on her lips, the confidence that told him she expected victory before the fight even began. He tightened his grip on the mace, feeling the metal dig into his palms. His arms were already sore from holding it in the previous challenge, but he refused to let go. He had learned long ago that pain was temporary, but pride and honor lasted forever. The alien woman raised her own weapon, a smaller but faster mace, and the crowd fell into tense silence. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. Everyone in the arena leaned forward, their eyes wide with excitement. Some cheered for the human, thinking he might surprise them. Others laughed, sure that he would be defeated in seconds. She moved first, spinning her mace in a wide arc, forcing him to step back slightly. His legs burned from the effort of holding the heavy weapon steady, but he did not stumble. He watched her movements carefully, noticing the rhythm in her steps and the way she shifted her weight before swinging. Patience was his only weapon now. He had no experience in their style of combat, but he understood one thing: observation could be stronger than raw strength. He shifted slightly, just enough to let her strike miss him by an inch, and the crowd gasped. The alien woman's smirk faded for a moment as she realized he was not as easy to intimidate as she had thought. She lunged forward, her mace swinging like a lightning bolt, but he braced himself and deflected it with a heavy block. The metal clanged loudly, echoing across the arena. Sparks flew where the two weapons met, drawing gasps and cheers from the crowd. He felt the shock of the impact travel up his arms, shaking his bones, but he did not let go. Every second he held the mace was a victory in itself. She tried to surprise him with quick jabs, striking low, striking high, trying to find a gap in his defense. He moved slowly, methodically, shifting the weight of the mace to counter her blows. The crowd could not believe what they were seeing. A human, weaker in every way, standing his ground against their strongest warrior. Some of the aliens whispered to each other, questioning the tradition. Could this human truly survive the trial? Could he even match her strength? Yet, with every block, every parry, he earned small moments of respect from the audience. The fight began to change. What had started as brute force slowly became a battle of skill. He could not match her speed, but he could predict her movements. Each time she lunged or swung, he used the mace to redirect her momentum. His arms burned, sweat poured down his forehead, but he did not falter. He was learning her rhythm, Noticing patterns in her attacks, the crowd watched in awe as the human seemed to understand her faster than she understood herself. She realized that the fight was no longer simple. This human was not afraid, and he was not weak. His stance was solid, his eyes focused, and his arms did not tremble even under the weight of the massive weapon. The alien woman shifted her strategy, trying to overwhelm him with quick combinations, moving faster, striking harder. But he adapted, letting the mace absorb some impact, using leverage to counter, never letting it fall from his hands. Every strike he blocked impressed the crowd more than any of her previous victories had. A few of the spectators began to cheer for him. Their voices rose above the general noise of the arena, calling out encouragement, amazed that someone so small could resist the mightiest warrior of the clan. Some of the elders shook their heads in disbelief, muttering about the laws of strength and tradition. Others remained skeptical, sure he could not hold on for long. But the human did not pay attention to their doubts. His mind was clear, focused only on the movements of his opponent, the swing of her weapon, and the rules of the fight he had agreed to. The alien woman grew frustrated. She had never faced someone who could block her strikes so consistently, who did not flinch under her power. She tried to intimidate him with a roar, a shout, and sudden swings that changed direction midair. But he held the mace like a pillar, unwavering. His muscles burned from the effort, every joint aching. Yet he did not release the weapon. Every successful block increased the tension in the arena. The crowd was no longer sure who would win, their excitement and fear growing at the same time. He realized that timing was more important than force. When she attacked too quickly, he allowed her momentum to carry her forward, then used the mace to push back, creating small openings in her defense. The alien woman noticed this and adjusted her style, trying to attack in unpredictable ways, but he adapted again, staying calm and patient. Each exchange was like a chess game, and he was learning her strategy faster than she could change it. Minutes passed, and both fighters were covered in sweat, their breathing heavy. The crowd's shouts became a background hum to the human, who focused solely on the battle. Every block, every swing, every shift of weight was critical. One mistake could end the fight. One slip could make him lose the mace and break tradition. He tightened his grip, feeling the pressure, the responsibility, and the honor of this moment. The alien woman finally stopped and stared at him directly, her eyes wide with surprise and a hint of respect. She had never met an opponent like this before. Not a single human had ever come close to standing against her in combat. And now, here he was, holding her weapon, ready for the next challenge. The crowd was silent for a moment, holding their breath, sensing that the fight was far from over, but that the human had already changed their perception of what was possible. The human knew the hardest part was ahead. The fight had only just begun, and the alien woman was preparing her next move. But for now, he had survived the first test. He had held the mace against a master warrior, earning a sliver of respect in a world that had never believed in human strength. Every eye in the arena was on him, and the suspense was electric. No one knew what would happen next, but everyone knew one thing. This human was no ordinary challenger. The human tightened his grip on the heavy mace, feeling every muscle in his arms scream in protest. His palms were raw, his shoulders ached, yet he did not let the weight overwhelm him. The alien warrior across from him circled slowly, her eyes sharp and calculating. She had expected him to falter after the first few exchanges, but now she realized that he was not just holding the mace, he was controlling it. His calm stance, steady breathing, and unwavering gaze showed her that he was not an ordinary opponent. The arena was silent for a moment, every spectator holding their breath. Even the wind seemed to pause as the two stood facing each other. The alien warrior raised her weapon high, the massive mace glinting in the sun, and then swung it downward with incredible speed. The human braced himself, lifting his own mace to meet the impact. The two weapons collided with a loud clang that echoed across the arena, sending a shockwave through the human's arms. Pain shot through him, but he did not let go. The crowd gasped in awe, whispering to each other that no human had ever managed such a feat. The alien warrior frowned, surprised at his resilience. She had underestimated him from the start, thinking that his human body could never match the strength of her alien form. But now she saw that he was more than just a human. He was someone who could endure, someone who could adapt. She shifted her stance, moving faster and striking with a series of swift blows, aiming to push him off balance. The human reacted with careful timing, moving just enough to deflect her strikes while keeping his center of gravity firm. Each block and counter drew murmurs of disbelief from the audience. He realized that brute strength alone would not win this fight. The alien warrior was too strong, too fast, and too experienced. He had to use his mind as much as his muscles. He observed her movements carefully, noting the slight ticks and patterns in her swings. When she raised the mace slightly slower than usual, he anticipated the strike and shifted his weight to absorb the impact without losing balance. When she tried a rapid series of low jabs, he used a small sidestep to avoid them while keeping the mace in position. Each maneuver required focus, patience, and precision. The alien warrior grew frustrated. She had never faced someone who could read her movements so quickly, someone who could predict her attacks and react in a way that neutralized her strength. She tried a spinning strike, a technique she had used to defeat countless challengers before. The mace came down like a whirlwind, but the human timed his counter perfectly. He caught the strike with his own weapon, redirecting the force to the ground. Sparks flew from the impact, and the sound of metal against metal rang like thunder. The crowd erupted in cheers and gasps, amazed at the human's skill and endurance. The fight began to take on a new rhythm. It was no longer just a test of strength. It had become a battle of wits and strategy. The human realized that he could not simply react to her attacks. He had to create openings. He waited for her to overextend, to strike with too much force, and then used her momentum against her. A heavy swing that would have crushed most opponents was deflected with a subtle twist of the mace, sending the alien warrior off balance for just a fraction of a second. That fraction was all he needed to stay in the fight and maintain control. The alien warrior's eyes widened with a mixture of surprise and respect. She had underestimated him for the entire challenge. Each strike he blocked, each movement he made, proved that he was not just holding the mace, he was commanding it. He had turned what she thought was a simple test of strength into a display of skill, strategy, and unyielding determination. The crowd's excitement reached a fever pitch. Aliens who had come to watch a quick victory were now witnessing a human defy everything they thought they knew about strength and combat. Sweat poured down his face, stinging his eyes, but he did not blink. His muscles burned. Every joint ached, and yet he held firm. He knew that if he faltered even for a moment, the mace would slip from his hands and he would lose. But he refused to give up. The human had learned long ago that determination could surpass raw power, and now that lesson was proving true in the arena. The alien warrior decided to escalate her attacks. She began a series of rapid, unpredictable swings, hoping to catch him off guard. The mace moved faster than before, spinning and striking from all angles. Many in the crowd thought this would be the end for him, certain that the human could not withstand such a relentless assault. But he adapted quickly. He shifted his weight, twisted his torso, and absorbed each blow with precision. The mace in his hands became more than just a weapon. It was an extension of his body, a tool to control the chaos around him. With each passing moment, he grew more confident. He could feel the rhythm of the fight, sensing when the alien warrior would strike and when she would hesitate. He began to anticipate her moves, countering more effectively, forcing her to adjust her strategy repeatedly. The human's endurance amazed the crowd, and even the alien warrior could not hide her growing respect. She had trained her whole life for challenges like this, but this human had turned the tables with patience, intelligence, and raw willpower. The battle raged on, both fighters showing signs of exhaustion. The alien warrior's strikes were slower, her breathing heavier. The human's arms trembled under the weight of the mace, but he did not falter. He had endured longer than anyone expected, and the crowd could feel the suspense building. Every second that he held the weapon, every successful block and counter, drew louder cheers and gasps. The impossible was happening before their eyes, a human standing toe-to-toe with the strongest alien warrior. Then, in a sudden moment of daring, the human used his understanding of her movements to create an opening. He shifted the mace just slightly, allowing her next strike to glance harmlessly off the edge. In that instant, he positioned himself to push forward, testing her balance. The alien warrior stumbled slightly, the smallest error that could change the outcome of the fight. The human did not strike to harm. He did not need to. Holding his ground and maintaining control was enough to prove his skill and determination. The crowd erupted into cheers, unable to contain their astonishment. The human had survived the fiercest part of the challenge and had even gained the upper hand without using brute force. The alien warrior paused, her chest heaving, her eyes fixed on him with a mixture of disbelief and respect. The arena buzzed with excitement. No one had ever imagined a human could endure so much and remain in control of the mace. He held the weapon firmly, every breath measured, every movement deliberate. The fight was far from over, but the human had already proven something remarkable. He had shown that courage, intelligence, and determination could match and even surpass raw strength. The alien warrior knew now that she could not take him lightly. The crowd knew it too. They had witnessed the impossible. An ordinary human standing strong in the face of extraordinary power, ready to continue the challenge. The human's arms shook with the weight of the mace, but he did not let go. Every breath he took was measured, every movement deliberate as he faced the alien warrior. She circled him slowly, her eyes narrowing, studying him with renewed interest. Her confidence had begun to waver after seeing him withstand blow after blow, and now she realized that brute strength alone would not decide this battle. She had underestimated him from the start, but now she knew that he was learning, adapting, and becoming more dangerous with every second. The crowd was tense, leaning forward on the edges of their seats. The arena had been silent for minutes, filled only with the sound of clashing metal and heavy breathing. Spectators whispered among themselves, amazed that the human had survived so long. Even the elders, who had seen countless champions fall, shook their heads in disbelief. The human, so small and ordinary in appearance, was holding his own against their strongest warrior. Every block he made, every swing he redirected, was a statement. He would not yield, and he would not be intimidated. The alien warrior raised her mace high and charged. Her movements were precise and fast, a flurry of strikes designed to overwhelm him. The human met each blow carefully, using his own mace to absorb the impact. Sparks flew from every clash, the sound echoing like thunder through the arena. He felt the pain in his arms, the ache in his shoulders, and the strain in his back, but he refused to let it control him. He had come here to prove something, not just to the alien warrior, but to everyone watching, that humans could endure, could fight, and could win against overwhelming odds. She changed her strategy, trying to test his stamina. Her swings became more erratic, sometimes slow and heavy, other times quick and unpredictable. The human adjusted, moving subtly to deflect her strikes while keeping the mace steady. He could feel her frustration growing. She had never encountered an opponent who could read her movements so well, anticipate her swings, and still remain strong under pressure. His endurance was beginning to earn him a strange kind of respect, even from the alien warrior herself. The human remembered the advice he had once been given. Fight with your mind as much as with your body. Strength alone would not save him. He had to understand his opponent's rhythm, her habits, and her weaknesses. He noticed a slight hesitation in her left arm before each powerful strike. It was barely noticeable, but it was enough. When she swung too far or overextended, he used the weight of the mace to redirect her momentum. A heavy swing that could have crushed him instead glanced harmlessly to the side. Each successful deflection made the crowd murmur in astonishment, and the alien warrior's frown deepened. Time seemed to stretch as the battle continued. Sweat ran into his eyes, stinging and blurring his vision, but he did not falter. Every strike he blocked, every movement he executed was a battle of wills. The arena held its breath, knowing that this was no ordinary challenge. Spectators who had come expecting a quick display of power were now witnessing a fight of endurance, strategy, and determination. The human's persistence was shifting the perception of what was possible. Even those who had doubted him could not ignore the strength of his spirit. The alien warrior, now breathing heavily, realized she needed a new tactic. She began to feint, pretending to strike in one direction while aiming for another. Many opponents would have fallen for the trick, but the human was alert. He noticed the subtle shift in her weight, the slight angle of her mace, and he adjusted. Each feint she executed was countered with precise timing, demonstrating not just his strength, but his intelligence and adaptability. The crowd erupted into whispers of excitement, sensing that the human had surpassed all expectations. She attempted a daring move, spinning the mace overhead in a wide arc, hoping the speed and unpredictability would make him falter. The human anticipated it, twisting his body just enough to absorb the force while keeping the mace steady. The impact reverberated through his arms, and for a moment his hands trembled, but he did not let go. The alien warrior's eyes widened. She had assumed he would break under such pressure, but he had not. He had endured, adapted, and now the fight had reached a new level of intensity. The human began to notice patterns in her attacks. Despite her skill, there was a rhythm to her movements, a subtle consistency that he could exploit. When she overcommitted to a swing, he used her momentum against her, redirecting the force into a controlled movement that kept him balanced. When she attacked with rapid jabs, he used small steps to deflect them while keeping the mace in a strong defensive position. His focus sharpened. The pain, the heat, and the exhaustion became background noise to the rhythm of the fight. The alien warrior's frustration was growing. She had trained her entire life for battles like this, for opponents who relied solely on strength and speed. This human, however, was different. He did not rely on strength alone, and he did not falter under pressure. Each block, each careful movement, each deflection was a silent message. He was not afraid, and he would not be defeated. Her attacks became more forceful, more desperate, as if trying to break not just his arms, but his will. The crowd could feel the tension building. Every spectator was on the edge of their seat, watching as the human defied every expectation. The clash of weapons, the sweat, the determination. It was more than a fight. It was a demonstration of courage, endurance, and unyielding spirit. The human's presence in the arena was rewriting the rules of what was possible, proving that intelligence and willpower could match and even surpass raw strength. Finally, the human found an opening. A small, almost imperceptible flaw in her stance gave him the chance to shift slightly, adjusting his mace to redirect the force of her next blow. He did not attack, but he held steady, proving his control and mastery of the weapon. The alien warrior staggered slightly, surprised by his skill, and the crowd erupted into cheers. The human had endured the hardest part of the fight, adapted to every challenge, and earned the respect of everyone watching. He stood there, breathing heavily, arms aching, sweat pouring down his face, yet unwavering. The alien warrior's expression had changed from confidence to astonishment, a recognition that she was facing not just a human, but a fighter with strategy, endurance, and courage. The crowd was electric, fully aware that they were witnessing something extraordinary. The human had not just survived the challenge, he had transformed it, turning an impossible fight into a testament of human determination, skill, and spirit. The human's arms ached from holding the heavy mace, but he refused to let it drop. Every second, his muscles burned, his joints screamed, and sweat poured down his face. The alien warrior opposite him narrowed her eyes, astonished. She had expected him to fail hours ago. Every challenger before had crumpled under the weight of her weapon, the strength of her arms, and the sheer pressure of the arena. But here he was, still standing, still holding the mace, still ready. His determination seemed unshakable, and it unnerved her. He noticed the smallest details in her movements, tiny hints that revealed where her next strike would come from. Each swing of her mace was powerful, meant to overpower him, yet he was learning her rhythm. The human shifted his stance just slightly, absorbing the blows instead of resisting them directly. Sparks flew as metal clashed, and the sound of their battle echoed through the arena. The spectators could hardly believe their eyes. They had come to see a display of alien strength, and instead, they were watching a human endure the impossible. The alien warrior became frustrated. She had faced countless opponents and had never been forced to hold back in her strikes. Her entire life had prepared her for this kind of fight. Yet this human did not falter. He did not panic. He adjusted, countered subtly, and held his ground. She realized that her strength alone would not win this challenge. She needed strategy, timing, and precision, qualities she had assumed no human could possess. The human's mind raced as fast as his body. He realized he could not just react to her attacks, he needed to create opportunities. He began to anticipate her strikes more carefully, noticing patterns in her swings and pauses. Each hesitation, each slight misstep was a chance to shift his weight, and that to redirect the force of her blows and to maintain control over the mace. The audience leaned forward, sensing that something extraordinary was unfolding. Every move he made was calculated, precise, and deliberate. Sweat stung his eyes, and his hands were raw from gripping the mace so tightly, but he refused to let pain dictate his actions. Pain was temporary. Failure was permanent. The alien warrior swung her mace in a wide arc, expecting to knock him off balance. He met the strike with controlled precision, letting the force slide along his own weapon and into the ground. His body shuddered from the impact, but he remained firm. The crowd erupted into cheers and gasps of disbelief. Never before had a human shown such endurance and control. She tried a series of rapid attacks, spinning and striking from different angles, attempting to overwhelm him. Many would have been crushed by the relentless assault, but the human adapted. He moved just enough to avoid the strongest hits, twisting his torso, bending his knees, and keeping the mace steady. Each counter and deflection demonstrated not just physical strength, but intelligence and strategy. He was no longer simply holding the mace, he was mastering it, making it an extension of his body and mind. The alien warrior's breathing became heavier. She had expected victory, and yet she found herself struggling to land a decisive blow. Every swing met resistance, every feint was anticipated, and every move was countered. She realized that she had underestimated him from the very start. This human was more than strong. He was clever, resilient, and focused. The crowd sensed her hesitation, and excitement buzzed through the arena. Aliens who had mocked humans in the past now watched in awe as one defied every expectation. The human began to use subtle tactics. He did not attack aggressively. Instead, he waited for her to overextend. A heavy swing aimed to crush him became an opportunity. He shifted the mace slightly, letting her own momentum work against her, forcing her off balance for a brief moment. That moment was enough to keep him in control and maintain his dominance. Each successful maneuver made the crowd cheer louder, realizing that they were witnessing something historic, a human matching an elite alien warrior strike for strike. Despite her skill, the alien warrior's frustration grew. She had relied on strength and speed to defeat opponents, and this human was challenging her in every way. He was learning faster than anyone she had ever faced, adapting to her patterns and countering effectively. She tried to use a spinning strike, a tactic she had used to defeat the strongest fighters in the past, but he anticipated it perfectly. He twisted his body, absorbed the force, and redirected it, showing incredible control and timing. The crowd gasped as sparks flew from the clash, and many realized that this battle was about endurance and willpower, not sheer strength. The human's focus was unbreakable. Every breath was deliberate, every muscle engaged. He had learned to move with the mace, to let it flow as an extension of himself. The alien warrior's attacks, once frightening and overwhelming, became challenges he could meet with precision. He was calm, methodical, and unyielding. The audience was captivated, unable to look away. The arena had transformed from a place of expected violence into a stage for human perseverance, cleverness, and courage. She attempted a feint, pretending to strike low before swinging high. The human recognized the trick, adjusted his stance, and blocked the strike with exact timing. Each successful counter built his confidence, even as his muscles screamed for relief. The alien warrior's eyes widened with respect. She had assumed humans could not match her power. But here was one standing firm, not faltering, and matching her in endurance, skill, and determination. The crowd's excitement reached a fever pitch. Every movement, every clash, every calculated shift of the mace had captured their attention. They had come to see a display of alien might, but were now witnessing a human rewriting what they thought possible. The alien warrior, breathing heavily and sweating, recognized that the fight was no longer simple. Strength alone could not win. She needed patience, skill, and strategy, the very things the human had mastered under pressure. Then, with precise timing, the human found another opening. He adjusted his mace slightly, letting her swing glance harmlessly by, and used the momentum to maintain control. He did not strike to harm, but to demonstrate mastery. She staggered slightly, shocked at his skill, and the crowd erupted in cheers, fully aware that they were witnessing a human who had endured the impossible. The human's arms burned, his body ached, and sweat poured down his face. Yet, he stood firm. He had endured the relentless assault, adapted to every strike, and maintained control over the mace. The alien warrior looked at him with a mixture of astonishment and respect. The crowd realized that this was no ordinary human. He had proven his endurance, intelligence, and determination, showing that even a seemingly ordinary being could hold his own against the strongest warriors. The human's arms shook, but he refused to release the heavy mace. Pain radiated through his shoulders and his hands burned from the constant grip, yet he stood firm, unwavering. Every muscle in his body screamed for rest, but he ignored it. The alien warrior across from him stared in disbelief, her confidence cracking. She had expected him to drop the mace long ago, to crumble under the strain, but he remained unyielding. The crowd watched in awe, feeling the tension and the power of the moment. She circled him slowly, eyes sharp, studying every detail of his stance and movement. She had trained for years to wield her mace, mastering every technique, and had defeated countless challengers. None had ever resisted her with such strength and focus. The human's persistence forced her to reconsider. His grip, steady and resolute, spoke of inner strength beyond mere physical ability. Every strike she made, every feint and swing, was met with careful deflection or precise absorption. He adapted to her attacks, learning quickly, reacting with intelligence and strategy, not brute force alone. The crowd leaned forward as sparks flew from the clashing metals. Each blow echoed like thunder, making the ground seem to shake beneath them. Spectators whispered in disbelief. Humans had long been considered weaker in combat, fragile and untrained compared to alien warriors. Yet here one stood unbroken. Every block, every redirection of the mace made it clear that he was not just surviving. He was asserting control over the fight. The human's endurance, skill, and focus created a spectacle unlike anything the audience had expected. The alien warrior's attacks became faster, more unpredictable, designed to wear him down. She swung her mace from different angles, tried feints, and even attempted to bait him into mistakes. The human, however, stayed calm. He noticed patterns in her swings, slight shifts in weight before each attack, subtle tells that hinted at her next move. He adjusted accordingly, shifting his feet, twisting his torso, and letting the mace move fluidly with him. Each successful maneuver was a small victory, and the crowd began to sense that the outcome of the battle was no longer certain. His body ached, and his vision blurred from sweat, but he focused on the rhythm of the fight. The weight of the mace became a part of him, an extension of his body and mind. He was no longer simply resisting. He was controlling, predicting, and countering. When she overextended, he used her momentum to maintain balance, turning her power into harmless force. When she attacked rapidly, he flowed with the strikes, absorbing them carefully while remaining steady. Each moment demonstrated not only his physical endurance, but also his strategic thinking and awareness. The alien warrior's frustration grew. She had relied on raw power for years, yet this human did not falter under it. Her previous opponents had fallen after a few swings, but he stood firm, holding on even as exhaustion crept into his body. She realized she needed more than force. She needed cunning and strategy to overcome him. Yet even her cleverest moves were anticipated, countered, and nullified by his sharp mind and quick reflexes. The crowd watched, spellbound by the intensity and skill on display. He noticed a pattern forming in her attacks, a slight hesitation before each heavy swing. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but enough for him to anticipate the strike and adjust. When she feinted to strike low, he did not panic. He waited for the real attack and blocked it cleanly. When she spun to deliver a crushing blow, he leaned with the movement, redirecting the force into the ground, barely budging under its impact. Every successful block or redirection bolstered his confidence, even as his body screamed in pain. Sweat poured into his eyes, stinging and blurring his vision, but he refused to falter. Pain was temporary. Yielding was permanent. He shifted slightly, testing her reactions, looking for weaknesses. The alien warrior, frustrated by his resilience, tried to intimidate him with louder strikes, faster swings, and threatening stances. The human remained focused, reading each movement, countering without aggression, conserving energy, and using skill to nullify strength. His mind and body worked together seamlessly, allowing him to maintain control. The crowd erupted in whispers as he began to anticipate her attacks more accurately. His timing, precision, and balance became almost flawless. When she lunged with a heavy swing, he pivoted, letting her momentum carry her past him. When she tried a spinning strike, he used the mace to redirect her energy without exerting additional force. Each movement impressed the audience, proving that endurance and intelligence could match and even surpass raw power. They had come expecting a one-sided display of strength, but what unfolded was a battle of strategy, courage, and unbreakable will. The alien warrior's exhaustion was showing. Her breathing was heavier, her movements slightly slower, and her eyes betrayed growing respect. She had underestimated him at first, believing a human would break under the weight and intensity of the fight. Yet he had proven otherwise. His resilience, adaptability, and tactical thinking had turned the challenge into a spectacle of determination and skill. The crowd felt the shift in energy, sensing that the human had not only survived, but had begun to dominate the rhythm of the fight. With careful observation, he found small openings. A slight overreach in her strike, a tiny imbalance in her stance, and he adjusted to maintain control. He did not attack aggressively. He simply held the mace, using her own force against her while conserving his energy. Each successful redirection demonstrated mastery, intelligence, and endurance. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause, recognizing the remarkable skill of the human who had turned the impossible challenge into a display of courage and strategy. The alien warrior's attacks became more desperate, fueled by frustration and a desire to win. She swung harder, faster, and tried feints she had never attempted before. The human met each attempt with precision, deflecting blows, adjusting his stance, and maintaining control. He was no longer merely defending, he was dictating the flow of the fight. The arena buzzed with excitement, the audience fully aware that they were witnessing a historic moment. A human surpassing every expectation and holding his own against one of the strongest alien warriors in existence. Every second tested his strength, endurance, and mind. His arms burned, his back ached, and his legs trembled, but he remained firm. The alien warrior, for the first time, realized that brute strength alone could not defeat him. He had become more than a human facing an alien warrior. He had become a symbol of resilience, intelligence, and determination. The crowd watched, captivated by every movement, every block, and every strategic decision. They knew this fight was more than combat. It was a testament to the unyielding human spirit. He held the mace high, ready for the next attack, every muscle in his body engaged, and his mind sharp. The alien warrior's eyes reflected a mix of respect, surprise, and determination. She realized she was facing an opponent unlike any she had encountered, a human who could endure, adapt, and outthink even the strongest of warriors. The crowd erupted once again, fully aware that this battle had become a legendary display of courage, endurance, and unmatched human spirit. The human gripped the heavy mace tightly, his arms trembling, sweat pouring down his face, but his determination never wavered. Every breath he took was deep and controlled, his muscles screaming in protest, yet he refused to let go. The alien warrior across from him watched with a mix of shock and respect. She had expected him to collapse long ago, yet here he stood, holding her weapon like it weighed nothing at all. The crowd around them was silent at first, their eyes fixed on the two combatants, sensing that they were witnessing something extraordinary. She swung her mace in a wide arc, aiming to knock him off balance. The force of her strike should have sent him sprawling, yet he met it head-on. He shifted his weight, absorbing the impact, and kept the weapon steady in his hands. The sound of metal clashing echoed through the arena, sharp and commanding. The spectators leaned forward, hearts pounding, as the human's resolve became apparent. He was not just holding on, he was mastering the challenge. Each second passed, and the strain on his arms grew, but his focus remained razor-sharp. The alien warrior's movements became faster, more aggressive, each swing more forceful than the last. She had faced countless opponents, and all had fallen quickly under her strength. But this human was different. He studied her patterns carefully, noticing the slight shifts in her stance, the micro-pauses before each attack. Every motion told a story, revealing where she might strike next. He adjusted his body accordingly, pivoting, shifting his weight, and redirecting the force of her blows. His understanding of her technique grew with each passing moment, making him more than just a challenger. He became a strategist in real time. The crowd gasped as he blocked and redirected strike after strike. Sparks flew as the metal mace clashed against her weapon, and the human's arms shook violently. Pain coursed through his body, but he did not let it break him. His mind remained calm, calculating, and deliberate. Every movement was precise, every stance carefully measured. He had realized early on that sheer strength would not win this challenge. Strategy, timing, and patience were the keys to success. He allowed her to expend energy on powerful swings while he maintained his own position with minimal effort. The alien warrior's frustration grew. She had relied on overwhelming force to win her battles, but this human was not bowing under her attacks. He absorbed the power of each blow, redirecting it subtly, forcing her to adjust constantly. Her confidence faltered as she realized that her experience, speed, and strength were being neutralized by his endurance and intelligence. The arena filled with whispers and murmurs as the audience understood the magnitude of what they were seeing. A human defying the impossible, holding the mace with a strength and focus that no one expected. He noticed a pattern forming in her attacks, a rhythm, a repeated sequence of feints and strikes. She had assumed he could not read her movements, but he observed carefully. A low swing followed by a high strike, a pause, then a spin meant to unbalance him. He countered each with small adjustments, a shift of his foot, a twist of his torso, a subtle tilt of the mace. Each counter preserved his position while exhausting her. The human's strategy was clear. He would not overpower her. He would outlast her, letting her strength work against her. Sweat stung his eyes, and his muscles burned as fatigue threatened to take hold. Yet he remained focused. Pain was a signal, not a limit. He relied on his training, instincts, and sheer willpower to maintain control. When she lunged forward with a sudden, unexpected swing, he anticipated it, pivoted smoothly, and let the mace absorb the energy without losing his grip. Her surprise was evident, and for a moment, the balance of power shifted slightly in his favor. The crowd's excitement grew. Every block, every pivot, every redirection displayed not just endurance, but brilliance. Spectators could see the human's mind working as hard as his body. He was not just surviving, he was turning the battle into a display of skill and intelligence. His calm under pressure and unwavering determination captivated the audience, who had come expecting alien strength to dominate. Now they watched a human match and even surpass the alien's expectations. The alien warrior's movements began to falter. Her swings were less precise, her timing slightly off, and her breathing heavier. She realized she was running out of energy while he remained steady, methodical, and in control. Each attack she launched required more effort than the last, while he used her momentum, absorbing and redirecting it efficiently. His endurance was unmatched, and his mental clarity allowed him to exploit her fatigue without overexerting himself. He saw a final opportunity. A particularly wide swing left her slightly unbalanced. With careful timing, he shifted his stance, letting her momentum carry her past him. He maintained his grip, keeping the mace steady. For the first time, the alien warrior stumbled slightly. The human held firm, and in that moment, it became clear to everyone. The human had conquered the challenge. He had endured every strike, adapted to every strategy, and held control over the weapon that had been designed to overwhelm him. The crowd erupted in cheers, a wave of astonishment and admiration washing over the arena. They had expected a quick and decisive alien victory, yet they had witnessed something far greater. Human resilience, intelligence, and courage proving that limits could be pushed and expectations shattered. The alien warrior, breathing heavily and standing with a mix of exhaustion and respect, realized the truth. Strength alone did not define a warrior. Determination, adaptability, and the courage to endure the impossible were equally, if not more, powerful. The human's arms burned, his body ached, and sweat drenched him from head to toe, yet he held the mace with unwavering focus. Every movement of the alien warrior had been met, countered, and endured. He had proven himself not only physically capable, but also strategically brilliant. The spectators were silent for a heartbeat, taking in the magnitude of the achievement before erupting in raucous applause and shouts of admiration. For the alien warrior, a new respect was born. She had faced the strongest, trained for years, yet she had underestimated a human. Her initial arrogance was replaced by acknowledgement. He had earned his place through courage, endurance, and skill. Tradition, expectation, and strength had all met their match in the fuse to surrender. The mace, once a symbol of alien dominance, now reflected the triumph of determination, resilience, and human spirit. The human finally lowered his arms slightly, breathing heavily, but with his gaze unwavering. He had done the impossible. He had held the alien warrior's mace, endured her relentless attacks, and proven that limits could be redefined. The crowd cheered. The alien warrior nodded in respect, and the arena itself seemed to recognize the historic moment. This battle would be remembered not just for the physical contest, but for the testament it offered. That courage, willpower, and intelligence could stand against the greatest of odds, and that a single human could defy expectations and earn respect through sheer determination.